Cinephiles, film enthusiasts, and relaxation seekers. My name is Cinephile ASMR, and today we are talking about The Suicide Squad. The Suicide Squad is James Gunn's new film, and if you know anything about James Gunn, he directed the two prior Guardians of the Galaxy movies, and before then, he did a couple of indies. Now, if you know anything about Guardians of the Galaxy, that movie not only altered Marvel's trajectory going forward, but comic book movies as a whole. This guy who was once directing indies now made a name for himself, bringing together this ragtag group of people whom most not even knew, and made them household names. James Gunn became a staple, and after that, he made a more endearing film with the second, and since then, moved over to DC to make The Suicide Squad. This movie, in a nutshell, is an anomaly in and of itself. It shouldn't exist. The fact that it does still blows my mind, because, like many of you know, there was a 2016 Suicide Squad, not to be mixed with The Suicide Squad. A bit confusing. And it is the pure definition of studio interference. The movie is a mess. The fact that it was edited by a trailer company should warrant enough concern. And it isn't good by any means, but we're not going to get into that. So the fact that Warner Brothers and DC gave James Gunn $100 million plus to make The Suicide Squad with 100% creative freedom blows my mind. And as we know, Marvel fired him for tweets he made 10 years prior, and Warner Brothers picked him up, I think within the same day. It's crazy. We're also not going to get into that. Let's talk about it though. So from the first opening frame, this movie knows exactly what it is. It ropes the audience in with an opening that I haven't seen done in any movie, period. It makes the stakes known. It lets you in as to the tone of the movie in a very, very bombastic way. It is insane. It really bears no expense letting you know what kind of movie this is, but somehow with that insanity in mind, it still saves the best moments for later. What the opening also allows the audience to know is that the camera work is stellar. I can't tell you of a single shot that was just still. There was constant movement throughout that made it so much more tactile for me personally to invest myself into. And let me tell you, the deaths in this movie, no spoilers, were something I was not expecting. They come out of nowhere. I knew going in with the 100% creative freedom that Gunn had, he was going to take some risks, but the marketing makes it seem as if certain characters have a lot longer screen time than they actually do. And that's going to upset some people, and at first it kind of bugged me, but it grew on me towards the end with the characters that live growing on you entirely. Let's talk about the main group of the cast. So we have Idris Elba as Bloodsport, John Cena as Peacemaker, David Dastmalchian as Polka Dot Man, Sylvester Stallone as King Shark, and I apologize if I mispronounce her name, Daniela Melchior as Ratcatcher 2. And if those names aren't wild enough, you have no idea what you're getting into. But in typical James Gunn fashion, he introduces characters that you have no idea who the heck they are, but they grow on you, and by the end, you fall in love with them. Idris Elba and John Cena, I'll get to John Cena in a second, have some of the greatest moments in the movie, particularly a moment when they have to try and one-up each other as to who can get the better kill. I was laughing out loud, and when I tell you this has been one of the funniest movies in years, I mean it. I could not stop laughing from beginning to end. And the standouts of this movie are King Shark, Polka Dot Man, and Ratcatcher 2. Each are given their perfect time to shine, but the acting and the writing elevates them from one-dimensional baddies to really characters that have life and purpose to themselves, and by the end you are championing them to get their job done. Not going to spoil what it is, but particularly Ratcatcher 2. The name is wild, but the character is incredibly acted by Daniela Melchior, and by the end I wanted a spin-off. I wanted 5 different sequels as its villain. So, this movie really subverted my expectation with the marketing, kind of depicting the villain as someone, but really transcends that and becomes someone else, and it completely recontextualizes it all, and not only elevates the story, but I think most importantly elevates the characters and the plot. It worked really well. I've heard some people complain about it, but personally I loved it, and I thought at the end of the day it really elevated the story as a whole, and it's less about the motivations and more just how it impacts the heroes, and I felt that works really well and is missing in a lot of comic book films. Now, as I said, this is a James Gunn film, and with James Gunn movies, there is always that balance of a tightrope between art and comedy, and this movie dips the farthest into dark comedy, where you're questioning, whoa, is this kind of like bordering the line of kind of too much, but then tearing up because of the heart, and in under 2 hours and 12 minutes, this movie really creates a marriage that at first can seem a bit jarring, but personally by the end, I felt worked in spades, and only you can tell if that worked for you, but for me, it worked tremendously. And finally, the meaning of this movie and the heart, similarly to Guardians of the Galaxy, is finding a family within the friends that you make, and I know that sounds cliche, but with the absurdity of this Suicide Squad, it shouldn't work, but it does so abundantly well, and it makes me sad hearing people call this a flop when we're living amidst a new wave of a pandemic, and it releasing same day on HBO Max. It deserves to be seen. It is such an important film for me as an aspiring filmmaker and a creative to get total creative freedom and to just push back when people say no and just try to be abundantly you. It worked so much for me, and I have minor complaints here and there, but I think ultimately people, including myself, need to realize that this movie makes you fall in love with characters named Peacemaker, Ratcatcher 2, King Shark, and Polka Dot Man. All that is mind-blowing to me. So with all that being said, I'm going to give the Suicide Squad an A. Thank you all so much for watching. It means a great deal that you stuck to the end of this, and maybe click the subscribe button. Let me know what you thought of the movie. And as always, my name is Cinephile ASMR, and remember to take life one frame at a time.
We're here at the premiere of The Suicide Squad, a James Gunn film. I'm prepared to dive inside the mind of James Gunn, and I'm dressed for the occasion as Peacemaker. As Peacemaker. Ha-ha! Let me get... Ha-ha! They won't give me the real one for some reason. I don't know why.